For 2 years, they referred to her simply as victim number 1, but before the world reduced her to a statistic, she was known as Vera. In the shadowy corridors of Springfield, Massachusetts, between the years of 1995 and 1998, 8 women vanished. Their disappearances barely rippled the surface of public consciousness, yet their absence echoed profoundly in the lives of those who awaited their return. Children left in a perpetual state of longing for mothers who would never again cross the threshold of their homes. The question persisted. Why did it take so long to apprehend the perpetrator? The answer lay uncomfortably in the societal blind spots for those deemed unworthy of attention. The forgotten, the marginalized, those whose struggles with addiction relegated them to footnotes in the annals of crime. In a world where a deceased addict rarely headlines the evening news, these murders were initially perceived as less significant, until a pattern emerged that could no longer be ignored. This narrative transcends the chilling chronicle of a serial killer. It is an exploration of the lives of 8 women who existed in the peripheries of American society and of a city that failed to protect them. It is a testament to the families who refuse to let their memories be erased, and a poignant reminder of the consequences when society deems some lives less valuable than others. In the mid-1990s, Springfield was a city on the brink. The egress of manufacturing jobs, the invasive scourge of crack cocaine, and escalating poverty rates painted a grim picture. Amidst this turmoil, women began to disappear, not in a sudden wave, but one by one, in a sequence so insidious it went unnoticed until the tragedy was fully realized. Springfield was a city divided. On one hand, it was the vibrant community depicted in travel brochures. On the other, a place of whispered fears and mounting despair. It was in this latter Springfield that Alfred Gaynor prowled, a predator exploiting the city's vulnerabilities. April 20th, 1995, a spring morning that should have heralded new beginnings, instead unveiled unspeakable horror. In the north end of Springfield, children stumbled upon a scene of unimaginable brutality. The lifeless body of 34-year-old Vera Halams lay discarded, her dignity stripped away. She had been mercilessly beaten, sexually violated, and strangled with such ferocity that her hyoid bone was shattered, a testament to the killer's overpowering rage. For the seasoned detectives who arrived at the scene, it was a visceral tableau of violence. Vera had been deceased for approximately 2 days, her partially clothed body bearing the marks of a fierce struggle. Defensive wounds on her hands and arms told the story of a woman who fought valiantly for her life against an unrelenting force of malevolence. Beneath the cold, clinical details of her death was a vibrant life extinguished too soon. Vera Halams was a devoted mother to 3 young children, aged 12, 10, and 7. A native of Springfield, she had once been a high school basketball prodigy, her future bright with the promise of collegiate success, until the dual burdens of unplanned pregnancy and poverty altered her path. Friends remembered Vera for her fierce love and protective nature, her laughter a beacon of joy that could illuminate lives in the margins, yet filled with resilience and hope. In the end, it is a story that compels us to reflect on the value we place on human life, urging us to remember those who once lived vibrantly, even if society chose to look away. In the shadowy alleys and forgotten corners of Springfield, a chilling narrative unfolded during the 1990s, a decade marked by the relentless grip of crack cocaine. This insidious epidemic coursed through the veins of the city, particularly ravaging its most impoverished neighborhoods. Here, the struggle for survival was a daily reality. Vera's story was one of vulnerability. often slipping beneath the radar of a system purportedly designed to safeguard its citizens. Her life was a constant balancing act, teetering between the need to provide for her children and the unyielding pull of her addiction. When welfare benefits dried up before the month's end, she resorted to sex work, a perilous means to an end in the unforgiving streets. The mid-90s saw Springfield grappling with a surge in crime, a byproduct of the crack epidemic's fierce hold. Burglaries, robberies, and assaults skyrocketed, their numbers swelling by 200 to 300%. Law enforcement resources were stretched to their limits, and the societal resupped the underlying issues. The tragic murder of Vera Hollums marked the beginning of a haunting chapter in Springfield's history. For nearly 2 years, her case lay dormant, with no similar incidents to stir the city's apprehension. Yet, in early 1997, the specter of violence returned with renewed ferocity. On February 11, 1997, the city was gripped by a biting cold, a fitting backdrop for the chilling end, prompting concern and a visit to her apartment on School Street. There, a horrific scene awaited, a scene all too reminiscent of Vera's fate. Joanne had been sexually assaulted and strangled, her final moments marked by a desperate struggle. Of a killer who was growing increasingly audacious. The striking similarities between the two murders, strangulation, sexual assault, and the brutality of the acts, set off alarms among investigators. The perpetrator was not only becoming more comfortable with murder, but was also willing to take greater risks. Joanne Thomas was a familiar figure in her community, known for her generosity despite the hardships she faced. A former nursing assistant, her life had occasionally turning to sex work to make ends meet while battling addiction. As investigators toiled to piece together the connections between these two tragic deaths, uncertainty loomed. Were they dealing with a single killer, or were these heinous acts unrelated? The answer seemed to manifest in the discovery of another victim. On a Sunday morning, June 15, 1997, the serene tolling of church bells was shattered by a grim revelation. In Springfield's North End, a homeless man stumbled upon the lifeless body of Loretta Daniels. She, too, had been strangled, her body left in an abandoned building, echoing the pattern that was emerging with terrifying clarity. By the summer of 1997, the city was gripped by fear, with 3 women murdered, their deaths linked by a chilling signature: manual strangulation, sexual assault, and strikingly similar victim profiles. The realization dawned that a serial predator lurked in their midst, a calculated killer whose crimes were meticulously planned rather than acts of mere opportunity. In the face of limited evidence, the quest for justice became a harrowing journey through the darkest recesses of human depravity. These crimes, woven into the fabric of Springfield's history, served as a stark reminder of the vulnerabilities that exist at the intersection of poverty, addiction, and systemic neglect. In seeking justice, one must confront not only the perpetrator, but the societal failures that allowed such tragedies to unfold. The killer lurked in the shadows, a specter in the night, moving with a calculated precision that left no fingerprints, no trace of his presence. In an era when DNA testing was still in its infancy, slow and cumbersome, he targeted those whose lives were often lived on the fringes of society. These were individuals whose stories were seldom told, whose disappearances did not ignite the public outcry that might have been expected had they come from more affluent backgrounds. The media coverage was sparse, a mere whisper in the cacophony of daily news, and the resources devoted to the investigation were reflective of this muted response. Yet, unbeknownst to the investigators at the time, The killer was merely in the nascent stages of a spree that would soon escalate with terrifying rapidity. In the autumn of 1997, the killer's dark campaign intensified. Between the months of September and November, after a lethargic start that saw 3 victims over 2 years, he accelerated his grim tally, claiming 4 more lives in a span of just over 60 days. On the 29th of September, 1997, the lifeless body of Rosemary Downs, a 42-year-old mother and grandmother, was discovered in her apartment on School Street. Once a diligent factory worker, Rosemary had recently faced the harsh realities of economic displacement when her place of employment relocated to Mexico. Her death was a grim punctuation mark on a life that had been filled with both love and hardship. As the calendar turned to November, the killer struck again. Joyce Dickerson, aged 37, was found in a dimly lit alley behind Worthington Street, an area known for its transient population. Joyce had been clinging to hope, saving money to join her sister in Atlanta, a city that promised a fresh start and the possibility of leaving behind the demons of addiction. The city of Springfield was gripped by a growing fear. 5 women had met violent ends under eerily similar circumstances. Law enforcement responded by increasing their presence in the areas known for sex work. Yet the population they sought to protect was elusive, often distrustful, and living on the margins. Flyers were distributed urging caution, advising against venturing to secluded locations with strangers. Yet the harsh realities of addiction and desperation often eclipsed these warnings. Each of these women had lives intertwined with family and friends, dreams for the future that were brutally cut short. By late 1997, the media had dubbed the elusive murderer the Springfield Strangler, a moniker that sent chills through the community. Public meetings were convened, and residents armed themselves with pepper spray, bracing for the worst. As the year drew to a close, the killer's fury showed no signs of abating. The holiday season, a time typically associated with joy and togetherness, was marred by tragedy. On December 7th, Shanna Price, 33, was found strangled in the trunk of her own car, a mere stone's throw from at a local supermarket, and was working to complete her general educational development certificate. In a cruel twist of fate, the day after Christmas brought yet another loss. Unveiling Martinez, a mere 25 years old, became the youngest victim of this relentless predator. Her life was extinguished in her apartment on Dwight Street Extension, a stark reminder that no one was beyond the reach of the Springfield Strangler. As the community grappled with the horror of these events, they were left to ponder the nature of evil and the fragility of life. In the shadows of a city striving for normalcy, the specter of the Strangler lingered, a chilling reminder of the darkness that can dwell within the human heart. In the quiet town of Springfield, a sinister shadow had cast its pall over the community, leaving a trail of devastation that would forever alter the lives of its residents. Unveiling Martinez, a compassionate soul, had dedicated her life to nurturing others, balancing her time between her role as a home health aide and the pursuit of higher education at a community college. Her aspirations were noble. She dreamed of becoming a registered nurse, a testament to her unwavering commitment to care for those in need. Yet her life was tragically cut short, leaving behind a young daughter who, by fate's intervention, was spared by staying with her grandparents during the holidays. The city was gripped by fear, as the specter of a serial killer loomed large. 7 women had fallen victim in less than 3 years, with the majority of these heinous acts occurring within the final 10 months of 1997. Law enforcement agencies, driven by a relentless pursuit of justice, assembled a dedicated task force, working tirelessly to unravel the mystery. The FBI's finest profilers were summoned, yet they found themselves perpetually one step behind, outmaneuvered by a perpetrator who seemed to possess an uncanny understanding of police methodologies and an ability to evade detection. His murders ceased, leading to a paradoxical increase in concern among the authorities. The community, too, adapted to this new reality. Women banded together, traveling in groups, arming themselves for protection, and seeking refuge in emergency shelters established by community organizations. The city, suspended in an agonizing state of anticipation, braced itself for the inevitable resumption of the killer's spree. The hiatus in the murders was a double-edged sword. While it provided a temporary reprieve, it also hinted at the potential for a more calculated and sinister resurgence. In the realm of serial homicide, such pauses can signify several underlying factors. Was the killer incarcerated for an unrelated offense? Had they relocated temporarily, or were they meticulously planning their next move, reliving past atrocities as they plotted their future actions? On February 11, 1998, the grim cycle resumed. Precisely 1 year after the murder of Joanne Thomas, the body of Yvette Torres, aged 33, was discovered in her Franklin Street apartment. She had been strangled and sexually assaulted. Her lifeless form posed in a degrading manner that spoke volumes of the killer's escalating audacity and depravity. The significance of the date was undeniable. A chilling message from the killer, commemorating his earlier crime and revealing a chilling adherence to his own twisted timeline. This killer was crafting a narrative, a dark mythology woven into the fabric of Springfield's history. With each act, he grew more organized, more deliberate, honing his craft with a disturbing precision. Yet, in his growing confidence, he made a critical error. Yvette Torres's apartment became the scene of his undoing, yielding a trove of physical evidence that investigators had long sought. The killer's comfort in her home, his consumption of food, drink, and cigarettes, left traces that would prove invaluable to the pursuit of justice. In this intricate dance between predator and prey, between darkness and light, the small town of Springfield stood resolute. For even in the face of such malevolence, the community's spirit endured, a testament to the resilience of the human soul. As the investigation pressed on, the legacy of those lost would not be forgotten, their stories forever etched into the annals of time, a somber reminder of the fragility of life and the enduring quest for justice. Within the shadowy corridors of an urban jungle, a predator lurked, a man whose identity remained elusive until the trail of evidence began to form a coherent narrative. In the dimly lit apartment of Yvette Torres, the scene of a heinous crime, tangible clues emerged. Fingerprints on a beer bottle, saliva on a cigarette butt, and the remnants of a meal consumed. Each fragment whispered the presence of a shadowy figure, a specter who had haunted the lives of many. For the first time, investigators grasped at a thread that could unravel the mystery, potentially revealing the monster's name. In the late 1990s, the world of forensic investigation was on the cusp of a revolution. Yet in 1998, the wheels of DNA analysis turned slowly, demanding patience from those who sought justice, as scientists meticulously processed the evidence from Torres's apartment. Detectives took to the streets with renewed determination. They canvassed the neighborhood tirelessly, their footsteps echoing a silent vow to bring a killer to justice. A break in the case came not from the lab, but from the words of a vigilant neighbor. This witness had seen a man frequenting Torres's apartment around the time her life was violently taken. A man known to them, a familiar face in the tapestry of the community. The name they provided was Alfred Gaynor. Gaynor, A man whose life unfolded in the backdrop of Springfield's Winchester Square was not a stranger to the police. His past was marred by petty crimes, burglary and drug offenses, but never violence. At 30 years old, Gaynor was a Springfield native, a figure who blended into the urban landscape, seemingly unremarkable. His life, however, was a tapestry woven with the threads of addiction and survival as he navigated the crack cocaine subculture that burgeoned in the late 1980s. As the police placed Gaynor under surveillance, they unraveled the fabric of his daily existence. He moved through the city with a practiced ease, a man of routines and shadows. Yet, unbeknownst to them, his name was already entwined with another dark tale, a brutal assault that would become the linchpin in their investigation. On the 25th of April, 1998, Robin Murphy's life intersected with Gaynor's in a horrific encounter. Found in an abandoned building, she bore the scars of a savage beating and circness. Her recovery was a slow journey, but one that culminated in a revelation. Her attacker was none other than Alfred Gaynor, a name she knew, a face she could identify. Murphy's testimony was a pivotal moment in the investigation. Here was a survivor who could recount the terror, whose experience mirrored that of the murder victims. Her survival was not just a testament to resilience, but a critical piece in the puzzle that would ultimately lead to Gaynor's downfall. In the intricate dance of predator and prey, the truth began to emerge from the shadows. The evidence, the witnesses, and the survivors each played their part in weaving a narrative that could no longer be ignored. In the quiet moments of reflection, one might ponder the nature of justice and the indomitable spirit of those who fight for it. In the end, the pursuit of truth becomes not only a quest for answers, but a testament to the enduring strength of humanity in the face of darkness. In the shadowed corridors of criminal investigation, moments arise that shift the tide, threading together fragments of a narrative that once seemed impenetrable. Such was the case in the pursuit of Alfred Gaynor, a man whose name, until that fateful day, had been whispered in hushed tones, veiled in the enigma of unsolved mysteries. His story, entwined with violence and cunning, began to unravel with the survival of one woman, Robin, whose narrow escape from death became the linchpin in a case that had gripped a community with fear and uncertainty. Robin's ordeal was harrowing, a dance with the specter of death that left her battered but breathing. The technique employed by her assailant, pressure applied to the carotid arteries, was chillingly familiar to investigators, echoing the method used on several murder victims whose lives had been extinguished with cruel precision. Yet, in a twist of fate, Robin survived, her mere existence turning the tide against her attacker, Alfred Gaynor, who had misjudged her tenacity for life as the final silence of death. On a seemingly ordinary day, May 10th, 1998, Gaynor's facade of normalcy crumbled as he was apprehended outside a nondescript convenience store. His arrest was unceremonious, marked by his lack of resistance, a stark contrast to the violence he was accused of inflicting. The subsequent interrogation revealed a man steeped in denial, acknowledging only a peripheral acquaintance with the victims, whom he claimed were merely part of the same shadowy drug scene. Yet, unbeknownst to Gaynor, the tendrils of forensic science were closing in, set to dismantle his web of lies with irrefutable evidence. The breakthrough came in June of the same year when DNA analysis returned with a damning revelation. Biological evidence collected from Yvette Torres's lifeless form bore Gaynor's genetic signature. The probability of coincidence so astronomically low it defied rational disbelief. Fingerprints, silent witnesses to his presence, corroborated his connection to the scene, while additional DNA evidence linked him inexorably to Joyce Dickerson. The monster, once a specter haunting the streets of Springfield, now had a name etched in the annals of criminal history. As the community absorbed the news of Gaynor's capture, a collective exhalation rippled through Springfield, a relief tempered by the sobering reality that the journey to justice was only beginning. For the families of the murdered women, the specter of Gaynor's crimes lingered, their loved ones' cases yet to be fully resolved. The knowledge of his identity offered cold comfort, a partial closure that left them yearning for the full weight of accountability to descend upon him. Within the courtroom, Gaynor's defense clung to a narrative of implausible coincidence, suggesting that his encounters with the victims were mere preludes to their untimely deaths at the hands of another. This defense, stretched to the edges of credulity, struggled against the mounting tide of evidence that painted a far darker portrait of his actions. The prosecution, armed with scientific rigor, presented a case built on the foundations of DNA certainty, fingerprint clarity, and fiber evidence that wove Gaynor into the very fabric of the crimes. Yet, amidst the sterile precision of forensic testimony, it was Robin's voice that resonated with profound impact. Her survival was not just a testament to her resilience, but a beacon that illuminated the path to truth. Her testimony, a vivid recounting of terror and survival, pierced through the courtroom, a living testament to the horrors Gaynor had inflicted and the justice that awaited him. In the end, the story of Alfred Gaynor is a stark reminder of the duality of human nature, the capacity for unspeakable cruelty and the indomitable spirit of those who stand against it. As the wheels of justice turned, the quest for truth marched onward, driven by the resilience of survivors and the relentless pursuit of those who seek to bring light to the darkest corners of humanity. The courtroom lay heavy with the weight of unspoken truths as Robin Murphy's voice broke the silence, her testimony weaving a chilling narrative of survival and brutality. For 40 relentless minutes, she recounted the harrowing details of her encounter with Alfred Gaynor, a man who had choked her into unconsciousness, violated her, and left her for dead. Her words, each a stark testament to her ordeal, reverberated through the room, leaving an indelible mark on all present. As Murphy's testimony unfolded, Gaynor's stoic facade wavered. He shifted uncomfortably in his seat, his eyes evading hers, a brief glimpse of humanity disrupting his otherwise impassive demeanor. For Murphy, the act of testifying was a trial unto itself, surpassing even the trauma of the attack. The presence of her assailant in the courtroom, the weight of his gaze, was a burden she bore with fortitude. Yet, she drew strength from the memory of the women who had not survived, speaking not only for herself, but for those silenced forever. In her confrontation with Gaynor, Murphy sought to strip away the monstrous guise he wore to lay bare the pitiable, fractured man beneath. Her gaze, unwavering and resolute, conveyed a message of recognition and defiance. The courtroom became a crucible of shared grief and resilience, as families of victims gathered, united by their collective loss. They adorned themselves with the images of their loved ones, a silent plea for the jury to remember their humanity beyond the label of victimhood. The trial spanned 2 arduous weeks, culminating in a verdict delivered after a mere 6 hours of deliberation. On November 2, 1999, Alfred Gaynor was found guilty of the first-degree murders of Joyce Dickerson and Yvette Torres. The judge's sentence was unequivocal: 2 consecutive life terms, devoid of the possibility of parole. Yet for the families of 6 other victims, justice remained elusive, a specter haunting their pursuit of closure. In the aftermath, The dilemma of whether to pursue additional trials loomed large. DNA evidence linked Gaynor to the murders of Rosemary Downs and Joyvaline Martinez, yet the nascent state of forensic science posed challenges for older cases. The emotional toll of further proceedings on the families weighed heavily, as Gaynor already faced life imprisonment without the prospect of release. The question arose: what could additional trials achieve beyond what had already been secured? For the investigators, the pursuit of justice transcended the confines of sentencing. It was about acknowledgement, about inscribing the truth of these women's fates into the annals of history, about compelling Gaynor to confront his actions. Closure for the families, a resolution to the chapters left unfinished, was paramount. These women deserved recognition, their murders acknowledged not merely as statistical entries, but as the tragic ends of vibrant lives. Nearly a decade passed with Gaynor steadfast in his claims of innocence, even as DNA evidence mounted against him in all 8 murders. Then, in 2008, an unforeseen development brought a semblance of closure to the remaining families. In 1996, Paul Fickling had been convicted for the brutal murders of his girlfriend, Amy Smith, and their 22-month-old daughter, Destiny Smith. This unexpected twist in the tapestry of justice underscored the complexities of truth and the relentless pursuit of closure. The stories of the victims, their lives intertwined by fate and tragedy, serve as a poignant reminder of the enduring human spirit. In the quest for justice, it is the acknowledgement of their stories, the recognition of their humanity, that ultimately defines our collective journey. In a chilling narrative that unveils the darkness lurking beneath the surface of a seemingly ordinary life, the story of Amy Smith's tragic end intertwines with the sinister legacy of Alfred Gaynor. Amy, a victim strangled in a manner eerily similar to the others linked to Gaynor, left behind a toddler who perished from starvation and dehydration, abandoned beside her lifeless body, a haunting testament to the cruel indifference of her killer. The year was 2008 when Gaynor stepped into the spotlight, claiming responsibility for Amy's death, previously attributed to his nephew. This admission was not a simple act of confession. It was a calculated move to procure a new trial for Paul Fickling, his nephew, whose fate had been sealed by the justice system. Gaynor's confessions, whether driven by familial loyalty, a thirst for notoriety, or a twisted sense of redemption, revealed a dark truth long suspected by investigators. His revelations were not mere fabrications. They were detailed, graphic, and aligned with evidence that had never been disclosed to the public. Gaynor spoke with a chilling familiarity about the crimes, divulging elements that only the perpetrator could know. His admissions left little doubt about his culpability in these heinous acts, though the veracity of his claims regarding his nephew's involvement remained shrouded in uncertainty. In a macabre pattern that recurred throughout his confessions, Gaynor described a modus operandi that preyed upon vulnerability. Offering crack cocaine to his victims, he would join them in their high before striking with lethal intent. For Gaynor, strangulation was not merely a method to end a life. It was a source of perverse pleasure, devoid of any semblance of remorse for the havoc he wrought. The legal ramifications of Gaynor's confessions were profound. In 2010, Paul Fickling was granted a new trial. He ultimately pled guilty to manslaughter, receiving a sentence of 19 to 20 years. Gaynor, on the other hand, formally confessed to the remaining 6 murders he had once denied, resulting in additional life sentences. Thus concluded a legal odyssey that had spanned 15 years, leaving a trail of devastation in its wake. Today, Alfred Gaynor resides within the confines of MCI-CD Junction, serving multiple life sentences without the possibility of parole. Now in his 50s, he has become what many serial killers eventually become: a footnote, a case study, largely forgotten except by those whose lives he irreparably shattered. The city of Springfield, once the backdrop for Gaynor's reign of terror, has evolved over the decades. Some neighborhoods have experienced the surge of gentrification, while others continue to grapple with the entrenched issues of poverty, addiction, and violence that once provided fertile ground for Gaynor's predatory inclinations. The opioid crisis has supplanted the crack epidemic, introducing new vulnerabilities and new frontiers where predators may lurk. In the face of such adversity, Robin Murphy stands as a beacon of resilience and transformation. For over 2 decades, she has channeled her trauma into advocacy, championing improved resources for women battling addiction, advocating for better police protocols in their interactions with sex workers, and fighting for the dignity of society's most marginalized. The names Vera Hollums, Joe Antimus, Loretta Daniels, Rosemary Downs, Joyce Dickerson, Shanna Price, Joy Villain-Martinez, and Yvette Torres echo a somber litany of lives brutally extinguished by one man's rage. These 8 women, their stories forever intertwined with a narrative of violence and loss, represent more than mere victims. They are the enduring reminders of the human cost of unchecked malevolence. Their families, forever altered, and their stories, deserving of remembrance, serve as a poignant reminder of the fragility and resilience of the human spirit. In the shadowed alleys of Springfield, the chilling tale of the Springfield Strangler unfolds, transcending the narrative of one man's malevolence to expose a city's failure to shield its most vulnerable souls. The saga reveals the grim reality of how poverty and addiction forge fertile grounds for predators. It underscores the harsh truth that society often assigns disparate values to lives, until the finality of death lays bare the grotesque nature of such judgments. Yet, the story does not end in despair. The capture of the notorious Gaynor marked a pivotal moment, heralding a transformation within Springfield's societal and law enforcement frameworks. The city responded with vigor, instituting new protocols to better address potential serial crimes and enhancing outreach to those living on society's fringes. Specialized units emerged, dedicated to intervening in the cycles of addiction that once left many vulnerable. The tragic loss of 8 women became a catalyst for an ongoing reflection and reform. Their deaths ignited a profound reckoning, one that continues to ripple through the community. In the end, perhaps this is the legacy we all desire: to inspire change that uplifts others, to be commemorated not for the manner of our passing, but for the essence of our being. May their names reverberate through history, outlasting those who sought to silence them, ensuring their stories of resilience and hope endure.